Here we go. Welcome into Gun Talk Hunt. Today on Gun Talk Hunt, we have a new team member at Team Gun Talk that we're going to talk with. He's a hunter and a shooter, and he also shoots a bow, which I've heard people do this. I'm going to let KJ and him talk about it. I don't know. It sounds like some kind of weird voodoo thing. But today's Gun Talk Hunt is brought to you by ATN and Timney, as well as Springfield Armory. Springfield Armory this year brought out the Model 2020 Waypoint rifles. Waypoint rifles are pretty cool. We used
pretty neat. They're pretty neat.
Is that their marketing speak? They're pretty neat. Impressive 0.75. That's 3/4 of an MOA accuracy guarantee, built with premium carbon fiber stock and an option of steel or carbon fiber barrel. Precision manufactured in the USA. These are pretty cool rifles, as well as Timney Triggers. So one of the things that Timney Triggers, obviously, they have triggers for everything, but the Elite Hunter for the Remington 700, latest overnight success, 73 years in the making.
That's real. They've got a good marketer on their squad there, but I love the Elite Hunter. I've got one in my rifle, and I think we talk about it all the time. What's the first thing you touch on a gun if you're going to customize it?
Trigger. Make it better. Make it better.
And little known fact, Timney actually has bow releases.
Oh, well, there you go.
Hey,
we should talk about that. This is a hunting show. Some people hunt with bows.
Some people do. And
our guest today hunts with a bow occasionally. Welcome in, Matt Johnson. Matt, welcome in, man.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. And it's because of my bow hunting, I've never understood and finally come to the realization that there is a lot of importance that should be played to a trigger to follow into your conversation. Because, for compound bows, that's the last point of contact you have is releasing that trigger. And it took me to bow hunt quite a bit to figure out that when I'm shooting, I've gotten way more accurate with my rifle now that I bow hunt more because of the understanding of pulling the trigger and not just snapping the trigger and yanking on it. So I would agree with you. I think it's overlooked and one of the first things people should really look at.
It's all feel. And I think that transitions well into from archery to rifle shooting. And I think Ryan and I learned quite a bit. We talked to our guys at FTW a few weeks ago, and that is your trigger control. It translates in archery, it translates in black powder, and it translates rifle and even pistols.
And I will say, if you're talking about a release for bow, kind of makes sense to get one from a trigger company, right? I mean, Timney Triggers, making triggers for almost 75 years now,
and they just happen to make. I mean, I haven't shot them yet, but if their archery releases are anywhere near, their Calvin Elites or their Elite Hunters or any of those, it's going to be smooth, and that's really what you look for. You don't want anything with any burrs in it, and especially they only make trigger releases. It's not the back tension. That's important.
I'm gonna just be over here in the corner while you guys talk about bow stuff.
We were talking beforehand, and I said, hey, I think I'm gonna do a thing, and Matthews just recently launched their V3 bow, and I'm over there drooling over it because they've got this cool website where you go in and you can build it to your specs, and you can add custom strings to it and different color riser and limbs, and I'm just nerding out over it, and I'm going, oh my god,
make it all pretty.
Yeah, I've got one that I should sell, Ryan. I've got a bow I could sell you.
Is it left-handed?
Oh crap.
Never mind. Damn left eye dominant weirdo. So Matt's joined the team on this side of sponsorships and working with the companies that sponsor what we do. But Matt, give people a little background on your hunting background.
Man, my hunting background, it's I call it a little unorthodox in that typically when you hear guys, I mean, I've been hunting for 30 plus years, but when you hear people talk about that, they're like, oh man, I grew up shooting squirrels and rabbits, and I didn't do any of that. So I'm a Western Minnesota farm kid, And I went deer hunting one time a year, one weekend. It was that first weekend in November, family traditional deer camp, northern Minnesota. But it is very stereotypical deer camp. And we went up there with my dad and brother and family friends, and it was heavy on camaraderie and dinner and all that kind of food and beverages, and it was a good time. And the deer were there, and we shot a fair amount of deer, and it was never about, chasing and the big ones, because I've grown up just my entire life hunting public land. And so it was hang and hunt, find the spot. And when the deer comes by, if it's brown, you're going to take it because it's what's around. And the area they have just was not a lot of large animals. And I just did that one weekend. And once I got out of college, I was like, man, I really enjoy hunting and I want to hunt more, much to the chagrin of my then fiance. And she actually bought me my first bow because I wanted to get into bow hunting. Living in the metropolitan area of Minneapolis, St. Paul here, I wanted to get into bow hunting because I knew I could do it more often. Plus, it got me to hunt in the warmer time of the fall here in Minnesota versus November, when we can easily get a foot of snow.
Great white north.
Right. And then I started applying for various city park hunts and that kind of stuff. And then I slowly started making friends, and it's outside the suburbs
Did he
of
say he's
Minnesota.
hunting in City Park?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
it's
control. They're called control hunts, and it is. It's literally it's a lottery, it's ticket to draw, and you go in, and you are usually allowed at least one beyond your normal archery tag. In Minnesota, you get one. Beyond that, you're usually in these parks, you're allowed an extra or even two extra. And so because they want the bow hunters to go in and take out as many deer as they can. It's a great way for people in the cities to be able to get in. It's completely controlled. And a lot of times they'll either vacate the park that entire weekend that they allow hunting, or they'll have you do it like on a Tuesday, Wednesday in the middle of the week.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like little Timmy is on a swing set and he looks up in the tree and there's Matt with his face painted, waiting for a deer to walk by, like
waves at him.
Timmy, don't say anything. He's over.
Timmy, he's right behind you.
Hold still.
So I got two stories for you on that front. One involves me, one doesn't. But there's plenty of the stories, yes, where there's guys sitting in trees and you see people walk by with dogs and they're like, great, this is not going to be fun at all. And then 10 minutes later, a nice deer walks out and they plug it.
Oh my gosh.
I was involved in one incident where I got drawn for a park hunt. I went and scouted to see where I could hang a stand, and got there, and I was the first alternate. Well, everybody who was drawn to go showed up, so I was actually out. But that weekend in the park I was supposed to hunt, the guys came in and they found a 1 acre marijuana plot.
Whoa.
Did he cash in?
So
his take home was amazing.
Right. And so that was rather interesting.
Wow.
But, that kind of stuff happens. But there's plenty of park hunts here in the Minneapolis area.
And that's, it reminds me, because I've hunted golf courses.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You can get onto them, and golf courses are great because they hate deer.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't want them running across the greens and tearing up stuff. So I 100% feel you. And urban bow hunting is big business.
That's an interesting, I guess that's a good point. It's an opportunity to maybe be able to hunt close to home if you live in a metro area where you can't normally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So you said you grew up on a farm, and I have this theory a little bit that seems like sometimes people who grow up on farms get into hunting, but it seems like there are a lot of farmers who, to them, like hunting is like, well, I'll see a deer and I'll shoot it if I have a rifle in the truck or something. But
they're more opportunistic.
It's a different approach.
If it's there, it's there.
It's like, because I see them all the time, whatever.
Yep.
So I have I kind of have a little bit of story on that because, as in this industry, and Matt, I'm sure you've seen it, there'll be industry hunts and they'll take you on a hunt and you do all this, hunting, and it's really like a lot of them are free range, but a lot of these outfitters, they're farmers too. And the best advice I ever got was, hey, if you're going to come do this by yourself, don't ask to go to the best blind. Ask to go with the ranch hand that's driving around the ranch a lot. because he knows where it's at.
Yeah, he's been paying attention.
Exactly.
He knows where the big guy is going to hide out during the day.
Yes.
I mean, and the more you think about it, that kind of makes a little bit of sense. I mean, he's out, so essentially he's always scouting, and if you're headed out on an outfitted hunt, there might be an opportunity that you're not seeing in here. Like, just ask to ride around with the ranch hand for the day.
Yeah.
Well,
like,
the other thing that's a bonus to that is, and this may sound ridiculous to some, but all those deer, they know his truck. So they're not nearly as worried about that truck driving around than if they find some other random pickup all of a sudden out there or UTV out there. And it sounds crazy, but when traffic in vehicles like that, animals all get used to certain ones, noises, activity at certain places. It's why when you go out west, they'll tell you, bring yourself a bale blind if you can get one at all, because if you go out west, what do you see for miles upon miles? Hay bales all over the place. And deer really don't pay attention to it if one randomly shows up in the middle of a hayfield.
That's a good point. And I do have a funny story. So my last evening of my Canada hunt a year and a half ago, my dad, guess where he was hunting from? The John Deere.
On top.
You just parked it?
No, it was there was a bear that had drug off the skull of my elk where I cleaned it. So it was in the shop yard where they work on all their equipment, and they've got, old cars lying around. They've got old tractors lying around. And so he was literally in a John Deere combine, and the bear. And so he propped the door open. Well, this bear sneaks around. He saw it for a brief second and it disappeared. So he thought it was gone. He didn't shoot it with any sights. The bear started crawling up because they're
into the combine.
Into the combine. He shot it at literally 2 feet.
It was self-defense.
It was self-defense. It was hilarious because I come up and he is like sheet white. He's going, "You're not gonna believe this." I go, "What?"
Oh my.
And he's stepping out of this deer. He goes, the bear was standing on the 3rd step
of the combine.
There was only 4 steps getting into this combine. Oh my gosh. But a bear crawling up. But it was the same bear that had drug off, and it was a big bear.
Yeah.
I need. No, thank you. But he shot it at point blank range with a 300 mag.
That might do the job.
Yeah, he had smoke coming off of him.
Kill him and cook him.
Yeah, but seriously,
exactly.
Could you imagine that?
Wow.
But again, going back to the whole thing, they're used to that combine, except they're not used to the door being open. And bears, if you've hunted bears,
right,
they are, and you've got them up there in Minnesota. They are curious creatures, and they want to destroy everything.
And they can climb.
Yep.
They'll climb trees. They'll climb tree stands.
Oh, I've convinced myself many a time that the bear at the base of my tree could not climb. And I look over my shoulder and there's bear marks on the tree.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it's I've chased bears twice, but I went to Canada for it. But yeah, it's that's a whole different method. It's a different critter than it is chasing whitetails. And well, just what was it, a couple years ago up on the land of northern Minnesota that I was talking about. I've never had a bear incident up there ever. And it's more northwest Minnesota. The bears in Minnesota predominantly are central to north central to northeast Minnesota. So where I am, it's very low bear population. But there was a bear up there, and he was still awake come second weekend of November. He hadn't gone to sleep yet. And man, it's an eerie feeling walking out in the dark and you look down in the snow, and on the trail to your stand is bear prints.
Oh.
And it's like, great. I've got a gun in my hand. This is great, but it's black out here in a headlamp. So my steps were a little quicker going to stand. And the irony to it is I got to my stand. I'm sitting there, and in the morning, about mid-morning, there's a guy who doesn't hunt very far away from me. And we walk on for half the way in. We walk on the same trail. But his way out, he stopped because the bear crossed his path, and I could hear him, "Hey, bear, go bear, leave me alone, bear." So I'm sitting in my stand going, okay, I've got another hour to sit here. Thank you.
I guess I'll just wait a little bit longer.
Right. it's an eerie feeling when you're not the dominant predator in the woods. I mean,
Yeah.
we are, but man, they could take you down one swipe. They are impressive creatures.
Yeah, they are. And what impressed me the most, though, the 2 times I was actually chasing bears, is just how quiet they are. And then once you look at them, you see their paws and you see how they're padded. It's like, to me, that's the biggest thing. Their biggest advantage, like they are just deathly silent.
Yeah.
Walking everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh.
So Matt, tell me about this hunt this weekend. You took your daughter out. She got her first deer.
Yeah. So it's where we go in northern Minnesota. So Minnesota's got a bunch of different. It's sliced into 3 different gun zones, and each zone has a little different timing. But so we were zone 2, and it's a 2-week season, or 10-day season actually, 2 weekends. And we went up second weekend. Well, my daughter turned 11 last spring, and in Minnesota, what we have is an apprentice license. So, and it qualifies for anybody, actually. Anybody who has never hunted before, you can go and buy an apprentice license for 2 years, and it's either like $1 or $5, something really inexpensive. And you can sit with a firearms licensed individual to go deer hunting. And it's a great recruitment tool because, in like this instance, like when I grew up, I couldn't go and actually hunt deer until I was 12 and had my firearm safety permit. But now it allows me to get my 10-year-old and 11-year-old kids out earlier. And so my daughter turned 11 last spring, and she's bent on hunting. She is my outdoorsman.
Cool.
And she's got a bow herself. She practiced this summer, and softball got crazy, and we didn't practice much because she wanted to go bow hunting for a deer this fall, but that didn't happen. So she's like, I'm going to go hunt with a gun with you in November. I'm like, sounds good. So we did. We practiced, and we took off last Thursday. And again, like I said, it's public land. So first thing Friday morning at the crack of dawn, we're hanging tree stands, and she's not afraid to climb. We get 16 feet up into a tree and sitting up there. And Friday morning was really quiet. Didn't see a single deer, and it was 7 degrees. And we lasted long enough, but yeah, it was 7. It was cold.
7. 7.
7.
That's
Single
not...
digit 7.
Oh gosh.
So I don't know if you guys in Louisiana understand what 7 degrees is like.
Oh yeah.
7 degrees in Minnesota is really not that bad when you're down in South Louisiana.
And it's 75.
Right. So then we took the day and went back to camp and hung out and warmed up. And then, but it's, November, what would have been last Friday would have been like the 14th-ish. And 12th, 13th, something like that. And got to get out in the stand early because, this time of year, deer move at all times. And where my stand is, I've hunted that spot for a decade. And I've shot some really good deer out of that stand. And so I knew, got to get out there. So I convinced her. The day warmed up nice. We went out there, and we got there at like 3 o'clock. And by 4:30, she was like, Dad, we haven't seen a deer. This is not going to happen. This is boring. I'm not liking this. And as a dad, like, you're right. I understand. And I'm like, this is not what I need. I need something. Come on. Sunset's at 4:45, still nothing. And now I'm just convincing my daughter as much as I'm convincing myself. Like, you know what? I've shot deer here right after sunset. They can come late. Don't worry. We still got, at least 20 minutes of good light to shoot. And in my head, I'm like, oh, man. And sure enough, 5 o'clock, I catch a deer walking out of the woods towards the clearing towards us. And I showed her, and she saw it. And then the whole range of emotions of, buck fever, but in her case, more than anything, it was deer fever and everything going on. And within 5 minutes, he got into range, and man, she lined it up, and she punched him right double lungs. He didn't go 10 yards and dropped.
That's
and
awesome.
It was one of those that you could tell from the stand as soon as it went down. I'm like, that deer is not giving up. And light was fading quick, so I was like, you stay here, you direct me to him. I grabbed the gun, I ran over, he was done. I waved her over, and we got some great, like, end of the day sunset pictures in the background in the woods. And so it was a blast. And it's actually, so I've got 2 kids, and my son went out, and I took him out in October. He got his first deer, and so she got hers. And so it's, I didn't shoot a deer, but I honestly, after she shot that one, it didn't matter because it's so cool to see your kids get there first and see the whole the whole emotions of hunting and the experience as you can see it now from the outside looking at them versus just physically experiencing it yourself.
Yeah. Well, you know, we are Gun Talk, and so we love guns, and I think how you set kids up determines the success. So I've got to know what guns you shoot and what caliber did you decide on?
Yeah, so my brother and I, we shoot a lot of guns, and it's all long guns for us. We love our bolt action, but he and I go back and forth on what's the great caliber. So the irony to it is he and I both shoot 270s, and it's just what we like. He's got a Remington pump action 270, and I've got a Ruger M77 Mark II bolt action, great. And so we talk about different rifles, and we don't want to have the same guns whenever else. So my daughter, anyway, set her up with a Savage 7mm .8. And the reason I landed on that one is my nephew and niece had both shot that, and I watched how they carried it. I watched how they reacted with it, and I was like, you know what? First-hand experience. I love the way that looks. Well, my nephew won a 7mm mag in a gun raffle this last year, so he's like, I'm done with this one. I'm like, well, if you're going to sell it, Vance, I'll take it because I got two little ones that are coming up. And so we grabbed that, and as you guys know, fortunate for us to be in the industry as we are, and especially during a year where ammo was tight, looking around and I was like, hey guys, I called up, 3 industry friends and said, hey, I want to try different ammo, see which one shoots best. And honestly, after taking her to the range and shooting, all 3 ammo shot best. So it was just a matter of, let's grab some bullets and let's go. And so she shot it with a Savage 110 Hunter 7mm .8, and she used the Nosler BTs.
That's a great package. Grain. I love the 7mm.08. I mean, that's it's hard to beat. And people, I think they've come around to the idea of that we don't need magnums for everything. We used to we kind of went through a phase of like we want magnums, or it's got to be a 30-06 or a 270 or whatever. It's got to be a full length cartridge. But now we've got 300 Blackout, we've got 6.5 Creedmoor, and these cartridges that are not super powerful, but they're super efficient. And and when they're comfortable shooting it, especially for kids or new shooters, they're comfortable shooting it. They're going to shoot it well. And then, like you said, put it through both lungs. What's the problem?
Right. Yep. And that's just it. It's funny because so the way I worked with my kids is I don't have an outdoor range to shoot at, so we didn't get to shoot a lot this summer. But I've got a membership at a gun club here, just not far from me, and I started them out on just a Savage 17 HMR, and just simple sitting on a bench and just practice the breathing, practice the trigger pull, understand the shot, and then we take about 2-3 shots with that 7mm.8, so they understood recoil and the force that's going to come from a bigger gun because in that whole thing. And by the time we were done with the range, both my kids are like, I don't like that 7mm because it recoils so bad. And in my head, I'm like, I get that based on the environment we're in with the range, right? And so for both kids, I was explaining, when you get outside and we're outside, the gun's going to be a lot quieter. And number 2, you're not going to feel that recoil nearly as much when you see a deer in front of you and you got everything flowing in you and like it is. And the first thing she said to me after she shot that deer, she looked at me, she's like, I hardly felt that gun kick at all.
Yeah, that is awesome.
And it wasn't that loud. I'm like, see, I told you. And to me, that's the other part of that .8 that I was really surprised me. It doesn't have much of that, just having shot a bunch of different loads and sizes. And so now for her, that gun's never going to be an issue. She's like, I'll take this. It's just fine. I understand it.
So I actually took my daughter on her first duck hunt this past weekend. And you said something in there that made me think about the strategy. I think those of us who are into hunting are always eager to get our kids out there with us. And I will say, side note, you brought your daughter, I brought my daughter. People used to say to me, well, if you have a son, I guess you get him into hunting and shooting and stuff. And I'm like,
why wouldn't you?
Either way, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it doesn't matter.
daughters can hunt and probably do a really good job at it, better than us sometimes. But
it's funny. I'm going to interrupt you real quick. It's funny that you say that because that was one of the first comments that someone made to my wife when my daughter was little is, "Oh, so do you think Matt will actually take her hunting?" And Jen looked at him and said, "I would expect him to take her hunting with him."
Nice. Yeah. That's
and
great.
I was like, good answer.
But what's the strategy? Because she said, "Dad, this is getting boring." And my daughter, she liked it. She experienced it. It wasn't a real busy day of hunting. We got one duck.
Right.
But kind of the strategy on how do you keep them interested in being out there? Because it's like when you take a kid fishing. Kids don't want to fish. They want to catch fish. So,
Right.
you know, I want to get you out there and I want you to enjoy it so that you'll keep coming back. And so mom can keep, you know, letting us come back and stuff.
Yes, please.
Right. You have any strategies? Because you have a couple kids and you've brought them up hunting.
Yeah. So two things that I guess I've employed is, the irony is on Monday, I got a Facebook memory that showed up that my daughter, when she was 4, she tagged along with me to go bow hunting in a tent in a ground blind. And just bring them along and make them part of the experience. And so for me, it was the kids all summer long, they come help set tree stands. They come check trail cameras. They've sat in ground blinds with me when there's been no deer and just setting up when we get there. It's like, hey, it might be slow. We might see something, we might not, that kind of stuff. But when they were younger and we were sitting in ground blinds, because when kids are wiggly, you got to say ground blind.
Yes.
I would bring technology with, and I'd limit it. It's like, hey, when we first get out there for like first half hour, 45 minutes, you can be on this because the chances of seeing something right away, not likely. But I talk them through it. I talk the whole thing through. And at the same time, I also have myself convinced that if they say they need to go because they're cold or they're bored or they're done, then I pack up and leave and I suck up whatever consequence comes with it, really. Because that's what happened Friday morning is by 8:30, she's like, I'm cold. I can't take this anymore. And I'm looking at them like, man, I have 45 minutes longer that I wanted to sit, but I was like, I'm not going to ruin this just because of day one. We've got 3 more days yet. So
yeah,
and it's hard for us to call that off, but you're exactly right. You have to call it off. And I mean, what are your snack options that you have to bring?
Snacks
that
are
you have
imperative.
Yes.
So what was funny is this is actually, I didn't tell you this part. So sometimes you don't even realize what you've said to your kids over the years.
Oh no.
But I guess I had said, you know, one of my things for hunting is Snickers. I always grew up like that was my thing. I want to bring a Snickers and especially somehow hunting season down here at least is always right after Halloween, at least the bulk of hunting season.
So you have plenty of candy.
I have like bags and bags of this stuff. So what is the first thing that she says when I'm like, we're going to go hunting tomorrow? She's like, can I bring Snickers? I'm like, yes.
Yes, you can.
She had never eaten a Snickers bar. We're pretty healthy in my family. And so she was like,
hold on a second.
Oh my gosh.
Hold on a second. We need to touch on that. She has never eaten a Snickers.
I didn't realize this. Obviously, she eats, dessert stuff, but she just happened to never have had a Snickers. So she was like,
I'm shocked.
She was excited about this.
Oh, heck yeah.
We definitely, candy, chocolate candy.
That is a staple hunting food right there.
Yeah.
That and Pop-Tarts.
I used to get the little pinwheels, the little cheap gas station cinnamon roll things.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. That or a honey bun.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's definitely one of the ways that you sort of encourage / bribe kids with being outdoors with you is like, but we're going to eat stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Lots of snacks.
Oh, a staple at deer camp for us. I mean, and it's actually in my hunting buddies that I bow hunt with too. They'll claim this too because they hate me for it. Is I bring the little mini chocolate covered donuts. That's a staple for me. When it's a deer camp weekend, I grab 2 bags of chocolate covered donuts, Little Debbie's, and
Totally.
It is. It's all about the food.
I think the powdered donuts could be a problem in the stand. Though.
Look like I've just spent winter in Minnesota.
No,
What'd you do?
The powdered donuts work well because they're a good wind check. Oh, there it
That's
goes.
it.
Oh, wind's blowing that
That's
way.
it.
Got
You
it.
just kind of shake the donut.
Hope they like I love powdered sugar.
You get a lot of bears in there, I
Yeah.
guess. Jeez.
Yep.
But yeah, but I will say the funniest part of bringing her was she got to experience real public land duck hunting, because there was a little snafu with launching the boat, and it wasn't my fault. It was my
No, it
buddy
Okay.
who knows what he's doing, but forgot to take off the transom saver deal. So so I was in the rush of trying to get it launched. We're at the public launch and there's all these people. I did fill up my rubber boots with water. So she got to watch Dad sit there on the side and pour water out of his boots and wring out his socks.
But the good news is that you are down in the South, so it wasn't, minus 20 out.
No, it was not.
Right.
It was not 7. It
No.
was like 70 that day. So
Oh,
no worries.
man.
Sacrifices were
You
made.
know, but that's at the same time, you asked about, how to keep it entertaining. That's the kind of stuff too where the kids enjoy, because as long as you roll with it and it's like, oh man, that's a boneheaded move and whatever, kids will laugh at it, and it just makes part of the experience. I guess to me, I don't remember where I learned it, where I heard it, but to me, I'm trying to make it all about the experience of it, because if they start to enjoy that, then I know they're going to continue to do it with me. Whereas when the kids are not with me, then I am very serious about my hunting.
Right.
I hunt as hard as I can, as much as I can. I get after it. I hardly eat anything. But when the kids are with me, it's way more. It's so much different. And the sad thing is, I'm realizing that I kill just as many animals with the kids with me than I do when I'm by myself. So
Yeah.
maybe I should just back off.
You got to adjust. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to adjust.
But you just, if you can focus your attention on them, it's about them, and it's about them and their
Yeah.
experience and how are they enjoying it and making it memorable, like you guys are talking about. I mean, it's just when they're with you, and something always happens. Just like filling the boots with water, she is going to remember that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean,
It's an
her
experience.
entire life.
Well, and
Yeah.
something you said, Matt, with the apprentice license or whatever it is, first timer license.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons for this is because what these state agencies, wildlife agencies, have figured out is if you make it difficult and you wait until they're 14, now they have different hobbies, and they're less likely to get into it at that point. I mean, they're into soccer or basketball or video games or whatever it is. And now they're not spending their time doing that, but you kind of have to get them in early. Like, I mean, get them started where they're going, this is my thing. Like you said, you were taking them out when they were 4 or 5 years old to experience like, hey, this is one of the things our family does.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it is. And the irony, I mean, it didn't dawn on me. And it's funny to watch, as I said, I got to experience both my kids behind the trigger this year. And that span was 4 weeks from when my son was out with him and then to when I was out with my daughter. But the difference in just their mindsets of going out, I mean, when I went out with my son, we get out to the tree stand and he's been playing with his buddies all afternoon. We get in the tree stand, the first 30 minutes, he's sleeping on my shoulder. I was cold. And then it's like a deer comes by, it's like give him the old chicken wing and wake him up. But as soon as he saw the deer, I mean, he was locked in. He was ready to go. He knew what to do. He had it all set. And his mindset is, I'm out here. I want to kill a deer. I haven't killed a deer yet. I want to shoot a deer. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, this last weekend, I'm up there with my daughter, and she gets in the stand, and she is radio silent, locked in, looking around, not talking, just ready to go. And I was like, okay, whatever deer we see. And she came with me last year, and we had a little spike buck walk up really close to the tree stand last year, and we just watched him go away. And she's like, well, how come you didn't shoot? I'm like, Olivia, I've shot a lot of deer in my time. Like, I'm not going to shoot that one. We're going to let it go, whatever. And I go, but now whoever, I go, so like that deer last year, if you want to shoot, like you could shoot him. Like you have free reign to shoot whatever deer you want to shoot because you haven't shot one and experience and all of that. And she looked at me, she's like, well, no. She was like, that deer last year, I wouldn't shoot that. I'm like, how come? She's like, well, how old was he? I'm like, oh, he's probably a 1.5-year-old. She's like, yeah, they deserve to like live longer than that. So if we see one like that, he gets a pass. And I was like, okay, that's all you. That's if you want to. And the deer that walked out, he was a 2-year-old, and she saw him, and she looked through the scope, and she's like, I see antlers clearly. And I'm like, then you're whatever you want. She's like, I'm going to do it. So
cool.
I've told my kids from the very beginning, you guys have free reign to shoot whatever deer, fawn, doe, spike buck, whatever. And my son was like all in. He's like, I want to shoot a deer. And my daughter's like, no, I want at least a 2-year-old deer because they deserve to live longer than that. And I was like, okay.
Her choice.
That's
Yeah.
really cool. I'm gonna like throw out a quick tip for everyone out there and in preserving these little moments that we're talking about. So last year I started, when Jet started his hunting career, I take his license and on the back I date it, tell what gun he was using, what optics, I list everything that he used, and then I tell the story on the back of his license. And so I hand write it and, put a little note on there and I put it in a book. So
Cool.
I did that this year. So if you guys are looking for a way to preserve those hunts, that is one way you can do it. They'll have it forever.
And it's stone simple.
Yep.
Yeah.
So easy.
Very cool. Matt, thanks for being with us, man.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure. We've had some conversations like this before, so no, I always enjoy it.
So if you're thinking about it, maybe this is encouragement. Take someone out hunting. It could be your kids and it could be your daughter.
Absolutely.
Or if you don't have one of those little rugrats yet, maybe you take, somebody else. Just take somebody out. And it could be an adult. There are so many people wanting to get into hunting right now. And I would say there are a lot of new gun owners, but probably getting into hunting is more difficult than just getting into gun ownership and shooting. Knowing the protocol and the culture of it and where to go and how to do it. So I would definitely encourage you guys to do that. Expand the ranks. So, Matt, thanks for being with us, man.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. That's it for us. We'll see you next time on Gun Talk Hunt.